Yes, it's recording. Good. Good. Good.
Got it.
It got it to work. Got it to work. Here, let's look and test this out. Say something.
Something.
Something?
Something.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe a little higher.
Cool.
All right.
It's too early for yelling.
Oh my God. You're right. It is like early. It is early. But like I feel like we need to just get some warm up here. You know, just get you used to audio.
So I can talk louder?
Yeah.
Like a normal person?
Yeah, like a normal person. Yeah.
I'm not awake yet.
Wake up. How much coffee do you need to wake up?
A gallon?
A gallon?
Yes.
Gallon. Is that humanly possible?
One of those big gulp cups.
No, I think you'd probably have some heart problems with the gallon of coffee. I know they said that you can handle. They say about like 12 cups.
Damn.
Before you can actually feel some sort of like
Heart palpitations.
yeah, exactly.
I already have those though, so it's okay. It's all good.
All right. Well, then I guess you're just part of for the course, right?
I'm ahead of the game, yeah.
Okay. How are you doing today, Rachel Johnson? How are you?
I am very tired, Michael Rivera.
Yes, I am too. I mean, this job, this secret like job that we do, is so exhausting. It takes a lot out of you.
I get tired even thinking about it.
Yeah, it's something that not made for everyone.
Not even close.
No.
Especially the day after a holiday.
Oh,
It's
jeez.
gonna be fun stuff.
Fun, man. But it does pay the bills.
No, it doesn't. I have too many bills.
Well, it pays my bills.
Well, congratulations, Michael.
Thank you.
Very happy for you.
I'm glad someone is. I mean, do you remember the time when like things were a lot easier? I mean, I'm sure it was like it's. I look at it, you know, everything like in sepia tone because that's how old I am. But I look back at the time.
Centuries ago?
Yes, centuries ago when I used to work at the ye old UPS store.
Driving a horse and buggy?
Yeah, driving a horse and buggy to work, trying to get that whole what is that machine they used to use? The printing press.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, getting the printing press to work.
I would love to ride horses to work.
Oh,
Drive a buggy.
well, you did ride horses for work, didn't you?
Technically, yes, I did.
Yeah. I mean, tell us a little bit about that phase in your life.
I used to be a badass that jumped horses. It was awesome.
You used to jump horses for like sport? Like you used to actually like jump over them, or? I mean, you gotta describe this occupation.
I'm not leaping over horses, no.
I mean, that's some, you know, a lot of feet to cover there.
Oh, I could do it.
Oh wow.
No, I used to show jump horses. So, rode around and jumped over things. God knows why.
Is that like the equestrian stuff? Is that what you're talking about? Like you know, you're walking around and you're dressed in the nice, you know, fancy pantaloons or whatever they are, pants. I don't know, the pants and the vest,
breeches,
the breeches,
riding breeches.
that's what they are, right?
Pantaloons. No.
No, it's not that.
It is that, yes. No, but I did not wear the fancy stuff. And so I did the speed stuff, so I didn't have to. I wore polo shirts.
So so it's a polo shirt and just regular jeans, or you have to wear some sort of like
Oh no, we still wear riding breeches, but they don't have to be tan. I hate tan, because when you fall off, everyone knows. So they get really dirty.
You can never work for Target.
Nope, I have no desire to.
I used to have to wear tan pants, although I did buck the system and went black.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I used to use black pants with a black long sleeve underneath my red shirt. It was, and a couple of bracelets here and there. I was very punkish for Target.
Very punkish.
Yeah, but I digress. Let's talk about you.
I don't want want to talk about myself.
Oh, well, you have to. It's called a podcast here. We need to have communication here.
You twisted my arm.
All right. When did you start? Like, when did you start getting enamored by the horsies?
Oh God, you did not just call them horsies.
I did.
You did not. No, I can't. I can't.
Yes. This is it causes reaction.
No, I won't speak to you anymore. No, I started when I was probably about. Well, I always loved horses, but I got into it when I was 12 because I started out working at a therapeutic riding center for disabled people, leading them around, and started riding there too. We had a dressage instructor there, which is the fancy dancing horses.
The fancy dancing horses are like those are the ones like the aren't those like the traveling horses? I've seen some of those things. Like they have shows where they have like these like traveling like these horses that travel around and they do like these dance performances with like their trainer.
Kind of like that. Yeah, I think you're thinking of Cavalia, but I actually got offered a job there too.
Really?
Did, yes.
What man, you must have been up there in skill to be offered a job like that, because that's not an easy task.
It is not. The only reason I didn't take it was because you had to speak French.
What, so you couldn't just like fake it?
No, because everybody spoke pretty much predominantly French, so I wouldn't have been able to understand anybody. So
Well, there's no like German equivalent of the show? I would think the Germans would probably have a similar show.
not that I know of. No, I don't think so. And they were actually Canadian. They went up in Quebec. It wasn't France, really, but
That was their venue right there. That was their place of operation.
yeah, that's where the horses stayed most of the time. That's why they don't come into town very much.
So you started working with horses for predominantly therapy, for therapy horses. How was your? How was your experience with that? Did you see? Did it help? Did it help a lot of the clients that came in?
Yeah, it's one of the most effective ways to strengthen your core. So a lot of people in wheelchairs got a lot out of it, but it was really cool.
So people like autism, cerebral palsy, some other like maybe like neurological disorder or a disability would be coming in there.
Yeah, it was everybody. I mean, we even had people that were treated for anxiety and depression because horses are really good with that and PTSD. But it was mostly physical. It was probably 75% physical disabilities, yeah.
And as those horses are helping them, how did it kind of help? Like, did it in a way help you? I mean, I know things were kind of a rocky start, and probably finding a job out there, at a young age was kind of tough. I mean, trying to make it out, because we talked before, you kind of had to make your own bones like early. Did it really like kind of help? I mean, not only like pay wise, but physically, emotionally. I mean,
I didn't start getting paid until I was 14 or 15. But it was actually one of two jobs that I had. I worked at another barn too, cleaning stalls and stuff like that. And when I started getting paid, it's a non-profit agency, so we did not get paid that much at all.
What was your day-to-day like? Like, how would you start your morning? I mean, from morning to night, what was like the steps you had to do? What were like the duties you had to do as taking care, like the stable and stuff?
I had to get there at 5 o'clock in the morning every morning, and that was when we fed them and either put blankets on or took blankets off. And then fill water buckets, clean water buckets, fill the water troughs outside before we put the horses outside in the pasture and all that fun stuff. And then the horses that weren't getting used right away we would put outside, and then classes started at 8:30, I believe. And I wasn't in all of them. I had to switch horses out and stuff like that. But, and then I'd go to my second job at probably about 12:30 or 1 o'clock. I had to walk there. I think it was like, I don't know how long. It took like 2.5 hours. And then I had to bring the horses in at that other place and then feed the horses there and do all that fun stuff, clean the stalls and Then I'd walk home for another 2.5 hours, and then if I couldn't get a ride, usually they'd give me a ride. But
And I mean, you got to work with a lot of people there, a lot of stable hands and stuff. And I think you mentioned there are a lot of there's actually a lot of Latinos that were up north in Washington that are actually working as stable hands there too. You had to work. How was the experience there working with Hispanic workers and stuff? I don't think a lot of people get into that, like the the portrayal of us is where we take the jobs that no other white person wants, but yet you were like there among like the Hispanic group. I mean, how was it? What did you take from your experience with working with them?
I definitely learned to love their music, that's for sure, because they would, if I was at the place I don't clean stalls at, they would get there at like 3 a.m. and clean stalls and play their really loud music that I can't understand. But I really liked it. I learned a few words of Spanish, but only like 3.
Oh yeah? Can you share those words?
No, I cannot.
Well, no is a word.
Absolutely not. The white girl does not speak Spanish.
I'm this by the end of the day, we will have a one Spanish word.
Not even close. I refuse. So I call that one chicken restaurant the Crazy Chicken because I can't say it.
Well, you can't say pollo loco.
No, I can't. I can say loco.
She said loco, folks. I did get one Spanish word out of her. Yes, it's a success. Cut the tape. This is we're done.
We're good. This is gold.
Although I don't remember where we left off, though.
I don't either. Something about horses. That's all I know.
I know we were just talking about. That's right, horses. Yes, horses. Horsies.
Oh God. I don't know you. I'm ashamed.
I know. I'm an evil person. I'm immature. A mature human being.
You can say ponies. You can't say horsies. Sorry.
What's wrong with saying horsies?
It makes you sound like a 2-year-old.
Ponies don't?
No, ponies. That's what they're called. Are ponies.
They're not ponies.
Yes, they are.
Are
Ponies are ponies. It depends on what height they are.
So when I go and say I'm gonna go bet on the ponies, I'm not. It's accurate. It's apt.
Technically, for the racetrack, yes, but they are not ponies. Ponies are short. They're small.
Oh, okay. But I mean, I always thought ponies as an age, like pony would be like a young horse. But what's the proper term for a young horse?
Foal.
Foal?
Or yearling, depending on how old it is.
Okay. Well, I should pay attention to my racing form more.
Well, ponies is a racetrack term, so you're fine there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking about that, you mentioned before that they're kind of young when they go out there.
Yeah, they're usually between 1 and 2.
It's kind of a rough go for them, isn't it?
Destroys a lot of bodies, yeah. They're too young for it.
It's so bad that I've heard in the news multiple horses dying on a racetrack during a racing season.
Yeah, it's because they go lame and then they put them down, or they break their leg and then, yeah, or they run them to exhaustion. That's always a good way to do it. But it's like running a toddler, really, in a endurance race. That's about.
Oh, please don't give my listeners any ideas.
That could be fun. That could be a new sport, racing toddlers.
You might see that in West Virginia soon enough.
That could be fun. Let's do it.
I'll bet money on racing toddlers.
There's worse things.
Oh my God, he's all hopped up on ding dongs and
steroids.
No, just the sugars.
Pixie sticks. Pixie sticks.
Yeah.
Some pixie sticks.
And let him run. Let him run. But it's something I never thought of when I was younger. You know, horse racing was one of those things I used to go with my dad to. I mean, that was one of the very few memories I have of my dad is going to Santa Anita racetrack. and I can remember the vibe there, and everyone just the rush of excitement, and the horses running, and then they look so cool with the different color jockeys and patterns and stuff, and it caught my eye, and I never thought about how bad it is for those horses out there.
It's bad for the jockeys too. Most of them are anorexic, so they can make weight.
That is crazy. Did you know anybody who knew a jockey? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's not like the Mexicans are a big giant community and we know all of each other. Like the guy in Washington is my compadre. No, it's not that. But I'm just wondering if like some of them did know us. Like if you heard down the line of the stable hands about jockeys, about their lives.
I've met one or two that have worked at racetracks, but they never stick around very long. And I try not to really associate with people that are involved in that because I don't agree with it.
I mean, it seems like more and more people are aware, given that the news coverage is abundant about all the issues the tracks are having. And it's not only that. I mean, if they don't break on the track, life after the track isn't so nice either, right?
Yeah, most of them, if they don't breed, if they're not good enough to breed them, they send them to auctions or slaughterhouses.
And that's a fair amount of them. I mean, not everyone gets to be to go, stud.
Well, not very few of them do. Some of the mares go to breed too, but mare is a female horse for those that don't know. But most of them they're not considered broke to ride, because they just basically strap someone on their back and make them run. They don't want them to slow down, so they don't really have a lot of control. That's why you see after they finish, it takes them a while to stop. But so if the horse isn't broke to ride and it goes to auction, odds are, unless it's like an unusual color or fancy, then it's probably going to get sold to slaughter.
Is it more profitable to send them to the slaughterhouse than to just give them to like maybe a rescue shelter or maybe a
well, they don't care
ranch?
about their horses. They don't give a damn. The slaughterhouses pay money for them, and they figure it's better to get some money than no money. Then they don't care what happens to them. So, and all the rescues are full pretty much. There's not a lot of room. Nowhere to go.
You working in the stables, and you also, I don't think we've talked a lot about the equestrian side, the sports side of it on your end. But before I segue to that, I have a question. My question is, do you feel like the owners, whether they're owning to race, owning to show, owning to, run, and do they care? Do you get like any like real humane owners out there, or is it all just a profit generating like business where the emotions have no place?
Race horses, probably like 2% of the owners care. Show horses, maybe like 30% of them care. It depends on what level you're at too. Lower level is lower income people, so a lot of times they care more. They're normal people rather than the rich people that just don't give a damn.
Is there any way like for like the common guy, when they're out there looking at a horse, know the signs of mistreatment to a horse?
Well, I mean, it depends on how. That's kind of a vague question, because I mean, if they've been cut up or starved, then yes, obviously.
Other than the visible, like I guess, yeah, visible signs, I guess would be just like the scarring on them, or maybe just a little malnutrition, where you could probably see a little, I don't know, rib cage.
Yeah, well, they do. Racehorses, they keep really slender anyway, but obviously they want them healthy enough to be able to run. But, I mean, a lot of it is their behavior, too. If they're super shy or anything like that, if they have any behavioral issues, that usually means that somebody did something. Because, I mean, even the grooms, sometimes they'll just knock the horses around, picking out the stalls, just hit them with the pitchforks and stuff like that because they just don't care. They want them to go where they want them to go, and they're going to get them to go that way however they can. Yeah, most people don't think about the mental health of a horse. People always, they notice if they're skinny, they notice if they're lame or limping, but they don't always think about the mental state of, because they're performance horses. I mean, they get, like if you run a teenager in sports, they usually, sometimes those people crack too. It's the same thing.
What if I just hold it like a mic, like this? Hello, welcome to the Palaver Project. My name is Michael, blah, 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 blah.
Something.
I'm not saying something.
That's all I got. Call you that?
No one calls me by that name.
Yes, they do.
No.
I do.
Oh my God.
Kyle.
Kyle calls me Magic Mike.
That's you. There's like 3 or 4 mics there. We have to come up with something. Or the Flash. We call you the Flash sometimes.
See, I prefer the Flash. The Flash is much more, I don't know. It's more akin to me, who I am.
Because of how fast you put up those dog cards every morning.
Yeah, Ixnay on the Ards A. Is that Pig Lannon?
Knows what they are. Come on now.
We have to be careful now. Remember, we've been sworn to secrecy about the type of job we have.
I forgot about the darn CIA.
Yeah, I still got the target on my I'm right in the crosshairs here.
The blinds are closed. They can't get to us. We're fine. They don't know we're here.
How are you doing today, Rachel? Rachel Johnson, everybody. Rachel Johnson. How are you? You're a dear coworker of mine. We have been working for years in this super secret occupation that we have. I mean, how are you doing today? How are you doing today?
I'm tired from a full week of fighting crime. Oh, I let it slip. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
No. Sorry.
Oh, jeez.
Yes.
Well, how many 3996s did you have to fill out this week?
None, because I was lazy, and I'm fighting the system.
You're a rebel from within.
I am, yes.
Oh, my. Well, I'm also here with Thalia Rivera, my daughter and junior correspondent.
Hi.
Yes, I guess you kind of nudged yourself into the podcast.
Yeah. I snuck in.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
jumped into your car and I forced you to let me in.
Yes. And after much persuading, just screaming like, "Can I be on the podcast? Be on the podcast?" and then trying to take my tagline.
I love that. That was hilarious. That's my favorite part of the last episode, by the way. I liked it. You got to put him in his place every once in a while, you know.
Yep.
Jeez Louise.
We're gonna gang up on you, Michael. You know that, right?
Yeah, I was aware of that. I think this was bound to happen.
It's girl power.
Oh, jeez. Well, I don't know where to go from there. This has been the Palaver Project. No. We're not going to do it.
Speechless. Wow. That's
All right.
the first, I think.
That is a first, huh? Well, it might not be the last in this conversation.
Shake it off.
Shake it off. Well, we came here, invaded your home, broke through your window, broke down the door, ate your food.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Brought me coffee, though. I do appreciate that.
Well, we had to do something. After all, the home invasion is kind of a traumatic thing, and we just thought maybe some coffee would just probably calm the nerves a little bit.
It's not going to fix the window, though, Michael.
Oh, well, we'll take care of that. Just send us the bill. Send her the bill.
What?
yes.
I don't have money.
Well, hopefully you're working this podcast and you might get some money. No, you're not gonna get any money.
I'm still waiting for my check.
It's in the mail. Oh,
Inside
joke. Yeah.
It's lost. I know it. It's fine. You didn't put my apartment number. It's insufficient, isn't it?
Insufficient. No, it's declared vacant.
Oh, darn.
Yeah.
That's okay.
We just think you're squatting here.
I am. Yes, this is not my furniture, by the way. I'm just hiding out.
This is some dude's place. He's just on tour.
I don't think dudes would have the things on the wall.
Hey, don't judge. Don't judge. This is the 21st century. You don't know what this dude's about.
Love above all things. What?
Hey, he's in touch with his sensitive side. Let it be.
I have to be understanding, I suppose.
Yes, you do, especially here in Santee. Yes, Santee, California. This is the most understanding, the most, inclusive part of San Diego County. Don't you agree, Rachel Johnson?
I do. It's very none of those things at all. And hot. Very hot.
How many burning crosses have you seen this morning, Rachel Johnson?
Only a few.
Oh, God.
It's a good day. It's a slow day.
Oh, this is a bad place.
This is terrible.
Don't come here. Don't come to Santee. Santee, well, unless you go to Santee Lakes. Beautiful Santee Lakes. And Mission Trails, if you like the hiking. Hey, when's the last time you hiked?
A few weeks ago. Work has been kicking my butt.
That was your thing. That was one of your passions, I would say, right? You like to hike and explore new places.
I tend to go off the trail, which gets me in trouble sometimes, but I get some good pictures out of it.
Well, you march to the beat of your own drum.
That's a very nice way to put it. I like that.
You've always kind of done things differently. I mean, while other kids were probably picking up summer jobs at some convenience store, what were you doing again?
I was working with horses and disabled people.
And that was a really noble thing. I mean, that's one of the cooler things that I learned about you. And so what's it entail? I mean, do you have to give a course first initially, like explaining how it's done? Who would show them how to ride? Would it be you, or would it be other people there at the center?
It was other people. We had certified instructors. I was more the horse handler, or what we would call a side walker, which is somebody that walks alongside the horse. And if they have physical disabilities, sometimes you have to help them stay upright or position them properly or move their legs into the right place. And if it's a mental thing, sometimes anxiety, PTSD, you offer them emotional support because a lot of times they're scared.
Did you have a lot of incidences where people would be overwhelmed? That it's just way too much like sensory overload where they freeze up. How would you have to deal with it?
We would usually just stop the horse and have a conversation. If they needed to get off, we would get them off. We had ways to dismount people very quickly if they started having panic attacks or anything along those lines, but usually we could talk them down. I actually had one girl in particular she was young and she had a lot of problems with anxiety, and she actually would not get on the horse unless I was there. So we had a special sort of connection, and she actually did really well. She rode independently by the time I stopped working there, so she didn't need me anymore, which is the ultimate goal.
Seems like a lot of take in, and like I said, I commend you for doing it. It's just, we're especially working with kids, and kids from either it could be CP, autism, it could be other PTSD, like you said, anxiety. It's with adults it's one thing, but with kids it's that it's hard not to get emotional about it. And I just kind of wonder how you got through it, like yourself, like going in there and seeing, because I'm guessing you got a lot of kids going in there.
Yeah, it was probably about 75% kids that were in there. I usually just dealt with it by The horses helped me a lot. I would show up early at maybe 5 in the morning and feed them and do all that fun stuff, and just being alone with them. We'd have conversations. Sounds strange, but I know a lot of other people talk to the animals too. But
I talk to my dog.
you talk to yourself, Michael.
Well, I like myself. I like the things that comes out of my brain. 90% of the time. But I digress. Go on.
Music helped a lot too. It's always kind of helped me, even when I was younger, and even these days. I would put my headphones on, and whatever I was feeling, I'd pick whatever type of music and it would relax me and kind of be an outlet for me.
Could I say something?
Absolutely, you can.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. You said that you rode before a horse. Like, you rode a horse before, right?
Yes.
What type of horse did you most like to ride?
I did what's called dressage, which is the super fancy where they look like they're dancing and jumping. So I rode thoroughbreds and warm bloods, which are the really big ones. The thoroughbreds are the fast ones that you see at the racetrack.
What are warm bloods?
It's a type. It's a classification for several breeds. It's basically, they're from Germany. They're Hanoverians. It's just kind of a general term for a very large, solid type built sport horse. I can't actually think of any other breeds besides Hanoverians off the top of my head. I must be slipping in my old age. But yeah, they're just the very large ones that aren't draft horses, which are the ones that you see pulling the wagons and the buggies and all that fun stuff.
You know, I always thought that, like, when I think about large horse, I think Clydesdales, and I always thought Appaloosas were large.
Appaloosas actually are not. They're about the size. Well, they can be all kinds of sizes, but they usually top out medium size. My first horse was actually an Appaloosa. It's just the spotted ones, basically, with the small spots.
Right. And that's another thing too. That was your first horse, and did you like you said, you go there early, you kind of, you take care of the horses, you kind of bond with them. How hard was it to just, when you finally like stopped working there, to let go?
They were my babies. I love my babies. It was really tough. I mean, because I was very involved in pretty much every aspect of their care all the time. And I was the only one that really worked there in that capacity. So it was hard for me to give up the control I had to actually train my replacement, and it was bittersweet because I really didn't want to leave, but I knew that I needed to, and I had to make sure that they were well taken care of. So, but she was good, my replacement. She learned well, wrote things down a lot, which I like.
So how did it switch from working in the therapy center to actually showing, actually, engaging in the sport of equestrian sport? How did you get it from doing that, from working there, to actually competing and winning?
Well, when I was working at the therapy center, we actually had a coach there that coached high-level riders in the Paralympics. So I technically started out my so-called career there because she was my instructor. Didn't do a lot of shows with that, but when I moved on, I started doing like small shows, and then people noticed me basically because I always rode the problem horses, and they saw how I handled certain situations, and then they asked me to come work for them. And that's always what I did. I never paid outright. I was never one of the rich people that could just go there to show. I always had to work my way through and clean stalls and do grooming and braid manes for the fancy people, and yeah, I was basically discovered, but I was mostly a working student throughout the whole thing.
When you were discovered by there, How long did it take? I mean, how long did it take? How long did you work there, in the stables, work and doing the low? I guess you would call it the bottom rung of the job of the job, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh.
Yeah. I did it throughout, like I said, I did it pretty much throughout the whole thing. When we were at shows, I didn't really clean stalls. I was more, I used to take care of horses that were valued at $750,000. So they wanted somebody that knew what they were doing to prepare the horses for the show, wrap their legs at the end of the day so they didn't get stocked up, do all the fancy bathing, and a lot of the horses that are that high level are pretty hot-headed, so you need someone that knows how to handle them properly without being abusive or anything like that, because there are some people that don't do it properly.
Was there consideration from the owners in regards to that, the treatment of their horses? I mean, or are they just trying to get the job done, whatever means necessary to just break the horse in and make sure it's a competitive, or it's a willing participant in the sport?
The owners were never really around, honestly. They would show up at the beginning of the day, show up when they needed to ride, which was rarely, surprisingly enough, because they didn't want to get on their horses when they were hot-headed, so it was up to me and the trainers to, usually the shows lasted 5 days to 7 days, depending on the show. Sometimes they were 2 weeks, but that was rare. And the owners usually only rode them maybe the last day or two when they were tired after we had worked all the kinks out.
You know, it's funny. I never pictured them riding their horses. I don't know why. I always think I have this idea of an owner being just kind of like a higher than thou kind of character, where he's just there just to kind of breed horses and race them or play or show them, and that's that. Never really engage with or bond with their horse, like for them who are into the sport. I don't know. I think it's like it's the racetrack mentality for me, because that's how I was exposed to horses, through the racetrack. And so, like, a lot of the owners of the racetrack, they're there with their best, like, Sunday finest suits, and they're wearing their aviator shades, and they don't look like they're people who would ride their horses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is the racetrack mentality. There would never be a time where they would ride their horses. That's the jockey's job.
Right.
They would be too heavy anyway. But in the showing, most of the time, you're exactly describing the parents of the children, pretty much. That was mainly the people that I was dealing with, were the rich moms that bought super expensive horses for their bratty little children to get on and feel important, pretty much. And they wanted the ribbons, which is what we got them. And then by the time that the children got on them, they were tired enough that the children usually won the ribbons too, because they pretty much kind of had to sit there and the horse did its job at that point.
What my experience with kids and having, like, I'm going to call it a pet, because that's kind of how they see it.
You're gonna bring Simba in this? You're gonna bring him in? Not Simba. I won't bring in Simba, but our dog. But I would say your experience with other animals and just Sprinkles. You're bringing in Sprinkles now.
I wasn't gonna talk about you specifically, Thalia. I was gonna try to kind of overall generalize it, but since you're putting yourself on the spot,
I do think Sprinkles is an excellent name, though. I like that.
Not a perfect name for the cat, though.
Cat's gone now. Gotta let it go.
I think we're all happy. I think Mom's happy about that, because Mom was the one who got scratched.
We're all happy about that. Anywho, what I was gonna say is that a lot of kids who want to take up the responsibility of owning an animal, taking care of an animal, are really not ready to take care of an animal.
You're talking. I was gonna try to keep it, but and it's even more, and it gets expensive. It gets ridiculously expensive. But you're doing it because you care, you love your kids, and you want to expose them to this, to take with a sense of responsibility. And they never really get the ball and run it with it. I mean, most kids I know don't do that. Was that the case? Was that the case? I mean, was there? Did it without fail? Did they always just not live up to expectations?
To be perfectly honest, it really had to do with the income of the household. It was always the people that had the money that paid everybody to do anything for them. I don't think it was more of a status thing for the richer people. They didn't care about their kids learning responsibility. It was more that they wanted little Sally to shine, and then they would just leave. I mean, there was never any participation from those children at all, really, besides feeding their horses carrots and feeling special. But the lower income people, there was a couple of them. They never, unfortunately, won because of the quality of the horses that the rich people had. But they tried their little hearts out because they were the ones that didn't have the grooms like I was and all that fun stuff. And so they had to do everything themselves. They were the ones that would show up. Their poor little mothers would show up all haggard with their coffee in the morning so their child could clean their horse's stall and feed it because there was nobody else to do it. So those children definitely learn responsibility, but it's more the high society ones that have everything handed to them on a silver platter that kind of, I don't even think that was the ultimate goal.
You hear that, Thalia?
No.
Humility. You need to have that.
I should have never brought myself up.
I thought you guys were rich, though. Aren't you guys rich? Come on.
Oh, that's a jab.
Let's just say we are.
Yeah, we conduct ourselves as such. Oh, God. Don't look at my bank account.
There's cobwebs in there.
Oh. No, but so when did you get into the competitive part of it? When did you actually start? They say, "Hey, we want you to ride our horse." Not, you do the grooming and everything, but when is it that you actually start to compete? Who came up to you first, and what was your initial like? Did you just go all in from the get-go?
Yes, I had no fear. I was actually asked to start riding people's horses when I was about 14. The first barn that I worked at, it was still the lower level shows, but a lot of the people wanted their horses to get out there, but they were either too old or too scared to, because I did jumping, and a lot of people don't have the courage to try that because they're afraid. But they wanted their horses. They wanted to see what their horses would do and all that fun stuff. So I always got thrown up on the horses, and we would find out what happened. So at that point, it was kind of not about winning. It was more about getting the horses experience. And it was fun for me because I don't care if they go bucking down the long side of the arena. I just laugh. So I had fun with it. But I actually helped a few people break their horses to ride as well, because I used to be, before I got old, very good at sticking on to horses that tried to kill me. But
what was your method of sticking on there? How did you not fall off?
You got to learn how to use your core, and I have very long legs, so if the horse was smaller, I could kind of just cling. Because most of them that I broke weren't the huge ones. I broke a Arabian stallion one time that I could actually almost touch my feet under his belly. So yeah, it was just kind of learning the different ways, because if they buck, you don't want to lean a certain way. Kind of like riding a motorcycle, I guess would be the best way to describe it. You don't use your you have to know how to use your center of gravity. And
The Arabian Stallion, is that one of the roughest horses to tame?
no, they're all pretty, except for the big slow ones. Most of them are pretty equally. It's based on their personality more than their breed. Arabians, or Arabs as we call them, are a lot flightier than a lot of kinds of horses. So that was the only problem. It was more that if anything happened outside of where we were working, then they would react strongly to it. But other than that, no, they're not specifically harder to break than any other breed of horse.
What was your preferred horse when you would you prefer a horse when you were actually competing, or at this point it's just any opportunity that you got?
I prefer thoroughbreds because I am a huge fan of what is called turn and burn.
Okay, you have to explain
I
turn
know,
and burn.
Well, yes, you have to let me get to that, Michael. Come on now. Don't interrupt. Jumping well, there's hunters and jumpers. Hunters is slow. I don't like it. It's boring, but I did it because I had to. But jumpers is all about speed. The first part of a round would be about making an optimum time, and then if you got into the jump off, which would decide the winner, it was about how fast you could get it done. So turn and burn is basically cutting corners as quickly as possible, making they're called rollbacks, but it's basically what a U-turn, because some jumps would be right next to each other and you would have to turn around and hit the jump right next to the other one. And it just depends on how tight you could take the corners and how balanced you could keep the horse that you were riding, and to make sure that it didn't spook at the jump and dump you on your face, which does happen. But yeah, so that's turn and burn. You just cut corners and book it as fast as you can. And thoroughbreds are very fast. So.
And this was your preferred one. This is preferred type of competition, and you kicked ass in it. Like, you know, from what you told me, you've won. Like, you placed in a lot of them, if not that one.
Yes, no, I didn't always kick ass in it. I took a lot of practice, but I had no fear. So a lot of times that would save me, because even if I didn't hit the optimum time, I would win in a jump off, because I would just ride like a crazy person. But yeah, no, I generally in jumpers placed in the top 6 and out of generally 30 to 40 people.
And these events are like huge events in over there where you used to live. And I mean, I don't know if I can say into all of Washington, but over in your neck of the woods, it was what everyone was doing.
Yeah, we did in my area anyway. There was a lot of them, and then we actually went to Canada quite a few times. They have a lot of stuff up there too. But yeah, it's sort of the Seattle area. That's where a lot of people do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
And how? I mean, once they're out of. I mean, you are taking a lot of bumps along the way, and what was your best experience and what was your worst experience when in competing?
My best experience in competing, well, it wasn't. I don't know that I would call it. It was the one I was most proud of. I was in a show one time when I was about, I want to say 19, and it was a round that had very big jumps in it, and I ended up losing my stirrups halfway through, and I ended up finishing and winning. So that one was one that I thought I was dead, but no, that was probably my best moment personally. My worst was one where I was riding a very green horse, and I guess they had never used, it's called a crop. It's a very short whip that we use. It doesn't hurt the horse, but if they're green, it encourages, or lazy, it encourages them to move forward enough to actually make it over the large jumps. I guess they had never used it on the horse before, but they gave it to me for whatever crazy reason. And the horse dumped me on top of the jump. He skidded to a stop, and I actually flipped over the top of his head and landed on top of the bars of the jump and took the entire jump out, and I broke 2 ribs. It was fun.
I'm just freaking surprised you didn't break your back and all this. I mean, I think falling off a horse, it's just broken back, broken neck. It's and the multiple times it's happened to you, you've broken ribs, maybe bruised up, but you're. I mean, do you still feel some of it today? I mean, are you still kind of are you still nursing some of the injuries of when you were competing?
Yeah, the biggest thing that you have to remember is that you learn how to fall. It's the same basic concept as karate. You tuck and roll. So that's why I never really injured. The broken ribs was the worst injury I ever had. I ended up with a bad knee because of it, which that is definitely the one that I still feel today. But that's why I broke ribs and not my back, because you learn how to turn midair and hit a part of your body that's going to take the impact more efficiently than your neck or your back or your head. And sometimes, I mean, there's an occasion that it doesn't always work depending on how vigorously you are thrown from the horse, but generally about 95% of the time you can have a sort of controlled fall.
When did you stop racing, like, completely?
You mean riding?
Well, riding, I guess, yeah, riding. I'm sorry, I forget that it's not just competition. Sometimes it's just for fun.
Well, racing is when you ride around a track in a circle, so I never did that. But,
why didn't you?
too tall. About 8 inches too tall.
You just don't, you're not jockey material, kid. Sorry.
I am not, no, not even slightly.
But you have some admiration for the sport, don't you? You don't. No.
I have no comment to that.
Oh, no. This is a podcast.
Nope.
And
I do not wish to offend anybody, Michael.
Given
the short little people might come bang down on my door.
Okay, no offense to any jockey, you're just doing your job and you're working hard, and there's a lot of great jockeys out there, but the sport of racing horses,
It's terrible. I do not agree with it. Yeah, it destroys good horses. They start them way too early, and it's just hold them together with duct tape for as long as they can win and throw them away when they're done.
A lot of people, who are listening to this, they they're local. They're in San Diego. They know Del Mar is just around the corner. The races are huge. It's a huge thing ever since all the way back when it used to be more. Before it used to be in Tijuana, Mexico, where they used to go around the border there, and, put their money on the horses and have a good time. Now that we have them here, and it's been a tradition for, oh my God, decades upon decades. But the last 2 decades, it's been kind of rough. A lot of horses have gone down on the track, and they have been euthanized. It's a real traumatic thing to see. It's traumatic to hear about it even, but to actually see a horse take a fall, break their legs, be considered useless or too expensive to try to give him a decent quality of life, since he's not going to be producing, and take him out for it. It's rough to see, and I wonder what you say about that. Why do you think a lot of horses are going down? Do you think, I mean, these jockeys are supposedly light as a feather, right, to them, but is it because of the age, you would say?
It's the age that they're at. It's the fact that all the jockeys care about is winning, so they tend to crash the horses into each other because they just they cut someone off and they want to win because they're desperate for that money, and they don't really care what happens to whoever is behind them. And unfortunately, if something happens to a horse's legs, it's not even generally a question of money. It's a question of they're on their feet for 98% of the day, and they'll just have no quality of life whatsoever. Like, you can't fix them. That's why they always put them down, because even though they're super valuable and they could breed, you can't breed a horse, because if its legs are messed up and it gets pregnant, then it's not going to be able to get up. So it's just, you don't generally have a choice. You have to put it down if something drastic happens to their legs.
What about those who do survive? Those who just go through racing for years, and or for I don't know how many seasons a horse actually goes for. But once they're done with racing, they're put out the stud, right?
You would like to think so.
I think a lot of people have that idea.
They don't just retire to big green pastures. No. It depends on the owner. I mean, occasionally, like, for example, Seabiscuit. Everybody knows Seabiscuit. He got lucky enough to have an owner that pretty much did that for him. He tried his heart out, and they care, so they actually set him up with a retirement. But if they're not considered good enough to breed in any capacity, whether it be a male or a female, they are generally sold at auction for the bare minimum price, because technically racehorses are not broke to ride. They're broke to turn left. So, and run as fast as they can. So they really have no brakes whatsoever. So if you go to an auction and you can't buy that horse for your child. So a lot of times they kind of go to undesirable locations at the end of their career, which is generally at 5 or 6 years old. Horses don't race, they go lame, they get broken if they race any later than that.
And what if they don't get bought?
Oh, they'll get bought. They'll get bought by slaughterhouses and get made into dog food, is basically what generally happens. That's why they generally, feedlot people go there and they'll pay $25 a head. If nobody else is buying them, obviously the owner is going to take that $25 rather than hold on to the horse, because they're going to cost money to keep. So yeah, they just kind of send them off to not knowing what exactly is going to happen to them, but most of the time it's not very good.
That's a terror. I mean, it's really devastating to hear that. Because, you know, I'm a spectator. Like, I don't know anything about horses. I just know they're tremendous creatures, and they are made to perform. And they're made to perform in so many different ways. And the one I was raised to see was horse racing. I mean, I can still remember the smell of Marlboros and camels in the Santa Anita racetrack, while my dad's putting up a bed and we go watch the horses. I mean, that's what I remember. That's what I kind of see, and I never thought about the horses I've seen racing and give us this like our 90 seconds of thrill. Most of them don't have a happy ending. So like it's a bummer. So it's something that people don't really think about, don't put into and they don't put it in perspective what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would say most of them, because a lot of them do. Because if they are used for breeding, they're treated like kings. I mean, they're making them a lot of money, so they're very well taken care of. And there are some rescues that have been set up that will go buy the racehorses specifically, so they don't the more undesirable ones, and they'll either try and break them to ride, or sometimes they'll just take them, keep them in a pasture until they can find someone. Because there are people that look for companion animals, either for themselves or they have another horse that doesn't do well by itself, so they just need a pasture ornament basically to keep the other one company. So, I mean, I wouldn't say most of them find an undesirable end. Maybe like 35% to 40% of them do, though.
You're not one to go to the races, are you?
Never been, and I probably would never go. No.
No, I think more the honor and it would be towards the sport show that you used to do.
Yeah, no, I definitely tend to lean more towards that. Although, I mean, there's gonna be undesirable outcomes for pretty much any sport you do, just based off of the amount of money that's changing hands. I mean, I've seen a lot of high-level horses be held together with different types of drugs and or steroids that are considered legal, so they can compete for years longer than they should. I mean, there's going to be it's the same as people sports. Like, they drug, and a lot of times they don't drug test, so it's kind of high-performance sports. It's just kind of a sad reality that sometimes it's not done properly.
Just this year, you went back for one more competition. You want to go ahead? You want to go ahead and tell us the story of how that came up? How long have you been out? And then, and when they gave you this call?
Years. I don't even know. I'm bad with ages, but I would say I'd been out for a solid 5 or 6 at least years, and I got a phone call from a person I used to ride for that had a horse that they were trying to sell that nobody really wanted to ride because he was, let's just say, undesirable. And she thought of me, even though it was 2 states away from me. And she offered me a very good deal to go up there and risk my life. My poor fat ass riding a horse again. But it actually went better than I expected it to. We placed in every class that I rode in pretty much. And the horse did sell for full price. So it was a success all around, and I had the time of my life. I hadn't gotten to do it for a long time, and even just being able to smell the horses again, anyone that's genuinely into horses knows what that's like, to walk into the barn for the first time in a long time. It's definitely one of the things that I miss, so it was fun.
Would you do it again?
Yeah, I would, definitely. She honestly wouldn't have even had to pay me, but it took some working up to doing it because I hadn't ridden in so long and I figured I would die. But no, I risked it, and it was definitely worth the risk.
It'd be awesome to hear you go back up there again. And, while still able to maintain your super secret job here.
That is the question. That is the fear. I don't need to come back with a broken leg, because then they might put me down, put me out to pasture.
Might turn you into glue.
Oh, jeez. I'd rather be dog food.
Farm animals.
Yes, I would go download a farm simulator to...
Are you recording this?
I sure am.
Stop.
This is so... No, but yes, I would...
Be more subtle, Michael.
Next time, warn us when you're going to turn on the mic.
He's done that with me before. Except for with his cell phone. He likes to try and hide it under the table.
He's like,
I need content, people. I need
Trickery! Trickery!
This is the only way it gets to work without anybody sounding like they have to give like a deposition.
No, I suppose.
It's organic.
I forgot what the baby goat was called. I don't think he even
A
had
kid.
a name.
The baby
No,
goats are
no,
called
the
a
name.
kid.
Talking
No,
about
the name. The name.
Oh. I'm trying to follow the bouncy ball.
Look, something shiny!
No, ooh.
Throw the keys.
But I don't remember what the goat's name was. I don't even think it had a name. But there was one time he opened the gate or fence, whatever, I forgot what it was, and the goat came running out, and I was like, and when I heard about goats, how they charge at you, I was like, I'm not getting close to the goat. But then my brother and me were like, so we just went towards the goat, and it ran off. I'm like, that's surprising.
This is definitely not the Billy Goat's Gruff kind of goat.
Yeah, no. It's more shyer.
You are not the goat whisperer, is what you're saying. Only chickens?
Yeah, maybe.
So you were a chicken whisperer. Chicken whisperer. How many chicks did you try to take from the last time we went to that farm up in Paris?
Oh.
You wanted to
Bunny. It was the bunnies I wanted.
Oh, it was the bunnies. That's
He was
right.
Because he asked us if we wanted a free bunny, and I was like, let's get ourselves a free bunny. And you're like, no. You're like, no.
No. I mean, he had a bunch of them. It's probably, I'm sure that bunny, that those rabbits were ready to make some more. But I mean, no, no more pets.
Killed your child's hopes and dreams?
Yes.
Oh.
You want a pet?
Let's go live on a farm?
Get a job.
Oh.
Learn some responsibility, and then maybe you'll be able to afford your own pet.
I'll take care of you. I'll take care of you when you're older.
I highly doubt that. I need to start
going into a home. Michael.
I am going to a home. I'm gonna be rolling myself in the wheelchair, staring out the window, and I'm gonna be saying to myself, "Today's the day that my dear old daughter will come to stay."
No.
Nope, you will never come back. You left 20 years ago.
You're still dreaming.
And I'm still thinking you're coming back with a tear in my eye.
She'll be back to care for me and feed me my mush.
And bring back my social security card.
Wasn't there that time where we were in the house and then you were saying how old you were gonna be, and then you said you were gonna, when you were in a wheelchair, that I would have to take care of you, and I told you no, I'm gonna grab your wheelchair and just let you roll down the hill.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Put him out of his misery.
She did say, clearly state for the record, that she would take me and roll me down a hill and let God sort it out. That was her plan for me when I was, I don't know, when I'm 70?
Maybe.
You're no good no more.
I'm no good. I'm busted. I'm done. Oh, wow. What a bleak forward future for me.
But back to the goat, because no one really wants to hear you going down the hill.
No, nobody does. Nobody does. Go back to the goat. What about the goat?
The goat was really shy. The goat didn't have a mother, because when we looked inside where the goat stayed, there was a horse instead. So I think maybe the goat mother, I think they just found it, and I don't know, whatever happened.
Wait. You're saying where the goat came out of, there was a horse there too? So you're telling me the goat and the horse were like a buddy comedy thing going on? You're telling me that, because you're telling me the goat came out of where the horse was at. So the goat was obviously hanging with the horse.
Yeah, they were there.
So they're pals.
Yeah.
They actually use goats as companion animals for horses and donkeys. They do it. The horses that don't like to be alone, they'll put them in the stall. And sheep sometimes, occasionally, but those are less likely.
Oh wow! How does the goat not get trampled?
Because the horse loves the goat.
Because they're buddies. Forever friends.
It happens a lot with racehorses because they're so high strung that a lot of times they'll have a companion animal and they'll actually freak out if they don't have that companion animal.
Wasn't there a time where you were in the farm with us, and then me and Michael were like looking around the area of chickens, and then we found a baby chicken or a baby chick on the floor, and then because there was this cage filled with baby chicks.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
there was a newborn baby chick.
Yeah.
And
it was on the floor.
Yeah, we were looking, and I'm like, "What's that?" And then
It was on
Michael saw it, and then he's like, "What's that?" And I looked, and I'm like, "That's a baby chick." And we ran to Mom and Mappy because we thought it was a rat. And then we went, and then we were like, "There's a rat! There's a rat!" I think we said that.
How can you? I mean,
Stop.
a chick.
We were kids. Everything to us was a rat.
Well, I went and I picked up the baby chick that was covered in dirt and put him back with the rest of them. I think. No. I gave it.
You're not the
I did
savior.
not. I did not do that.
Oh, God.
I
What
gave
did
it.
you do?
No. I gave him to your great uncle. I gave it to him,
Oh,
or I think his daughter, and they took care of it.
so you're not a savior.
Yes, I am. I picked it up from the dirt.
Wait, no, you were about to step on it. Now I remember you were about to step on it, and then Michael said, "Look," and then
Fake news.
And then you looked, and then you said, "Oh yeah," and then you did that. I remember. Yes,
I was not gonna step on any baby chicks.
because you didn't see it until he pointed it out.
Oh my God, this is total lies. You know what? I also think this whole goat horse thing is false too. I think you're both lying about the goat
Watch
horse.
the movie Seabiscuit, Michael. You'll see. That's proof right there.
I'm just surprised there hasn't been a buddy comedy done with a cartoon horse and a cartoon goat.
Fairly
And
certain
since-
that there has somewhere.
And since Warner Brothers or Disney has not done a comedy, I don't believe it exists. They would cover every type of stereotype, and that's one of them they would never shy away from.
I think you should Google that, Michael.
I will.
You might
Here's
be
your
proven
phone.
wrong.
I will.
Do it right now. Do it right
All
now.
right. I'll
If
see.
you're proven wrong, you have to admit it out loud into that little device you're holding.
You know,
The
I'm.
whole world to hear.
This is ridiculous. I am actually gonna humor you guys, and I'm gonna look it up through Google. Sponsor us, Google.
That would be awesome. That's a big fish right there.
Okay, and then let's see here.
While you're doing that,
Goat, horse, companion.
don't
Click
have to
on
say
that.
Don't have to say it out loud.
And
We're gonna be
hold
talking
on.
about it. Oh, look at that. He actually did search it up. What is
And it appears that crap.
There's
I was
toys.
right and you were wrong. I was right and you were wrong. Say it.
Say it.
Thalia and Rachel were right.
Google won't.
And
sponsor
I was. We'll talk to you next week, guys. Bye.
Hey.
Rachel, thank you for doing this podcast. Do you know how long I've been trying to get you to do a podcast?
I am a very stubborn individual.
You are very stubborn. But I finally was able to I don't know, corral you into this. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a horse pun.
I don't know. You mostly bribe me with coffee.
That usually works.
It does with me and where we work at. Yes, that is an excellent thing to bribe me with.
We should just freaking just inject IV fluid into our veins.
Can we do that? That would be awesome.
Yeah, maybe have to give it a thought. Well, thank you so much, and this for Rachel Johnson.
As you would.
Ha! Yes.
You know I was gonna do that. You just knew I was gonna do it. You have to.
She did.
It goes with me.
As you were.